Hello. Hi, everyone. Okay, we are live. Thank you for joining us today on our very first live stream of 2026. We are so excited to bring this session to you. Uh, in this day and age when AI has become part of everyday's life, it's hard not to talk about it. And in this session today, we are going to talk about designing human centric AI experiences, looking at it from first principles and what it means for you as a designer in this age of AI. But before we go into all of that, we'll talk a little bit about AOH. So, AOH is a community, curated community for product designers all over India. We organize workshops, events, and talk about all things design all the time. So we have a bunch of offline and online events happening in January. So reach out to us, look up at After Office HQ on our socials to get more information about what's happening around AOH. And if you'd like to join, reach out to one of our, I think, community members and they'll help you, you know, guide to the next steps. And you can hit subscribe if you want to see more discussions like this on your feed, on your YouTube feed. I am Pooja, a product designer and founder of AOH. With me today is Abhimanyu, who is my co-host for the session. He'll talk a little more bit more about himself now. But Abhimanyu, how are you doing today? How are you feeling?
Doing good. I like starting off the year with something
Yes.
interesting to do.
Uh,
And love that we're doing all of these sessions, bringing in all these interesting people to talk to us. Hey everyone, Abhimanyu here. Loving all the design energy that's showing up at the beginning of the year. So let's kick it off by talking about our speaker today. We have Ashish Kore in the house. Ashish is a.
Akshay,
Oh, sorry. I am sorry. I knew I'm going to do that. Akshay Kore in the house. Thank you. I'm reading it and I wrote the notes incorrectly. My
it's
bad.
all right. It's all
Akshay Kore in the
right.
house. All right. So Akshay is a design leader and a published author. And he has spent years shaping products where AI and design come together. And that is way more relevant today than ever before. He's built AI experiences for companies like Microsoft, Observe AI, Suki AI. And he's taken all of that experience and he's distilled this into a book called Designing Human-Centric AI Experiences. Speaking of which, the best question today will actually get a free copy of the book from Akshay himself. You can see Akshay right now. Okay, he's going to show up again. But Akshay is also visiting faculty. He teaches AI and design in institutes like IIT Bombay and IIM Bangalore. And with that, with getting your name wrong in the first go itself, Akshay, over to you. I would love for you to talk a little bit about who you are, um, what brought you here today in terms of how your design journey has been, and what made you the you that you are today. Over to
Awesome.
you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Abhimanyu Pooja, for inviting. And thank you, everyone, for joining on a Sunday afternoon. I'm Akshay Kore. I am a product design leader based out of Bangalore. Have been in the design space for some time, started my career with Microsoft, where I worked on early voice interfaces. So, Cortana, if anyone of you have heard of that, or a lot of search experiences, early search experiences, chatbots, etc. I worked on those. Post that, moved to this company called Observe AI. There I worked on an interesting problem around allowing non-technical users to build their AI models themselves. Right. So we built this system called a moment builder, and essentially it allowed you to sort of build these small models and sort of combine them to sort of identify different things. Post this, I moved to Suki. At Suki, I lead a team across India and the Bay Area, and I lead a team across both these geographies. And it's a mix of different kinds of designers. We have filmmakers, motion designers, UX designers across the team. At Suki, we're trying to build an AI assistant for doctors focused on the US market. Uh, Over time, while as I started my design journey, I started having I had this inkling that this AI thing will become big, and what that translated into was me trying to teach this to different people. I started writing blog posts, etc. That turned into a book So I got offered to write a book based on the writings that I done on my blog, and that happened to have been released at the right place, at the have been released at the right time. It was My book was released a month before ChatGPT was announced. So this was a little bit earlier. The hypothesis seemed to have worked out, and it's a very popular textbook. It's used across lots of universities and schools, including your MITs, Harvards, Stanfords, etc. I also teach, like when you mentioned, at IIT Bombay and ID at IIM Bangalore, and also like different institutes over throughout. So, with that, I'm super passionate about the topic of AI and design and product in general. I'm interested in how this field is going to evolve, how careers are going to evolve, how jobs are going to evolve. So, yeah, with that, that's a bit about me. And yeah, thank you all for joining.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that. And as I was joking in the prep call, Sam Altman basically read his book and he's like, I need to release ChatGPT right now. Uh, so it's amazing to have you here. In fact, AI being the hot topic it is today, it's more than awesome that we're doing a session, the first session of the year, talking about how to get it right, essentially. But before we dive into the depths of I want to go back to one of the older products that you mentioned, which are not part of the Microsoft Suite anymore with the same name. But Cortana was a big deal when I was growing up, and I was you know playing Master Chief in Halo, and when that showed up in Windows, it was like, wow, I have real life Cortana with me. What was it like at that time designing Cortana, and what are some of the interesting things that you had to do as part of that team? Would love to hear
All
some of
right.
that.
So, like you, I was also interested in like gaming, and Halo and Cortana was super exciting. So when I got the chance to work on this product, it was super exciting. This was very early voice interfaces. The thing barely like voice interfaces barely worked. A lot of it
Hmm.
was if else logic.
Yeah.
Essentially, like if you say a specific statement, then do that. Essentially, LLMs have made this process a lot more streamlined now. But at that point, you have to do something called dialogue flow. Essentially, you have to sort of
Mm.
map out the dialogue of what somebody might say. So it involved a lot of user research, figuring out what are the potential questions people might ask. uh, every question can be asked in different variations. So I could say hi, I could say hello, how are you. Both signify a greeting in some
Yeah.
ways, right? So there are infinite combinations of questions that are possible. How do you sort of distill that to a specific type of query, and type of intent is what you call.
Hmm.
How do you sort of distill that into a workflow, essentially? So that was one of our bigger challenges. A second big challenge was, how do you even interact with a system that has voice?
Hmm.
uh, Not just voice, it is a multimodal system, right? Like based on who is speaking and where they are, their context, your interface keeps changing. For example, if I am close to my laptop, it is unnatural for me to actually talk to my laptop. It is probably
Yes.
easier for me to chat or type something, use GUI, etc. But if
Yeah.
I'm like slightly far away, is when I might like want to make a command, like your Alexa devices or Google Home devices. Essentially, it mostly works when you're sort of partially handicapped in some ways. So when you're
Hmm.
driving a car is an
It's a
example of
perfect time. Yeah.
where you don't want to really tap on a screen, or so voice is a good
Yeah.
time to use the voice interface is a good time to sort of utilize when you're in these partially handicapped
Hmm.
situations, right? So we had to sort of design around this. There were like a lot of interesting things that we discovered. For example, when you're far away from a desktop,
Yeah.
and you're speaking to a machine, right? The font when you're closer to your desktop is
Hmm.
not enough for you to, like when you're far away, the size of the font is probably not large enough for you to be to
Right.
for it to be usable.
For the response, for you to understand what the
So you have to
thing
bring
is
in a
saying.
lot of cues about understanding. If somebody's talking to you, do you increase the font size at that point? When
Ooh.
the intent that you are speaking from somewhere far away, right?
Wow.
How do you signify to somebody that the assistant has listened to you? For example,
Yeah.
then you have a sound cue, If you're doing the same thing on a phone, do you have a haptic cue, etc.? So it's not purely visual or UI design anymore.
Hmm.
So to think about uh, various kinds of senses a human has, and how you might be able to capitalize on those senses to sort of do the job for
Interesting. And since you said there was not a lot of UI, I'm just curious, like, what did designing for Cortana look like on a system? Like, what were you working on to like think through all of these dialogue flows and showing
oh,
all the responses and all those things?
it was like everything was built ground up essentially. There was
Mm-hmm.
no system to build a dialogue flow, nothing. We used to basically work with our developers to figure out how ASR works. How there's a lot of big problem with building voice interfaces is also latency, essentially.
Right.
Uh, your systems, even now, they do not have enough computing capability. They do not have
Hmm.
like sort of latency mechanisms to sort of feel very human-like.
Yeah.
So, how do you manage the perception of latency is also a big design question. So,
Oh.
how do you, when you are asking a question, right?
Yeah.
It will take the system some time, like a few seconds to
Correct.
respond to you.
Yeah.
How do you introduce things like paraverbals, like when a assistant says or yes, or like filler words? Essentially, filler words are
Hmm.
a way to sort of also manage this latency in some ways. Filler
Yeah.
words,
What we used to do in school when teachers would ask us questions like,
yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah, so take some time to think. And
Yeah.
basically, you thought of it, you sort of answer. And you're seeing it even in today's LLMs, like
Correct. All
that.
of those bouncing dots and thinking and all of those things that LLMs are doing today.
Yeah. So you'll see a lot
Awesome.
of paraverbals used. Like for example, you're talking to ChatGPT via voice.
Hmm.
Uh, First, it'll take some time to sort of start the real-time stream anyway. Right?
Okay.
So that's the latency part that comes in. After that, after if you ask it a very complex question, which requires some level of thinking,
Hmm.
it will it will say something. Basically, it will
Hmm.
say, I understand. That's a very good question, like something like that. That
Hmm.
sort of gives you time to sort of process things on the background.
That
Right?
is so
And then you
interesting.
sort of respond. So that's how you make it feel natural. Uh,
You're basically designing for the in between, right? You normally just
yeah,
think about, hey, input is this, I need to provide an output. What's happening in between is something you normally don't think through.
absolutely. So
Wow.
once I think a good thing to think about when designing these kinds of interfaces is also understand the technical aspects of it. Like
Right.
latency is a physics limit. Like it's a limit
Hmm.
based on the physical world. It's not like beyond a point you will not be able to reduce latency. Like there
Correct.
is light takes some time to travel across fibers. It is going to take some time. So even if you
Hmm.
have the fastest internet, most computing, you're going to run into a challenge of like size of the wire and stuff like weird stuff that will come up. And
Interesting.
every time uh, it doesn't feel natural, you run into that uncanny valley situation where it feels like you're talking to a robot. So one other consideration is to also, I personally think that most of these systems should not claim that they are human or even like try to act too human-like also, because
Yeah.
you are even inevitably going to run into these uncanny valley situations.
Correct.
And tech folks still like sort of get it, but
Yeah.
as soon as you expose it to somebody who is not like
Right.
not from a tech background, doesn't understand these things, and feels like this is a human, there's a lot of chance of manipulation, a lot of chance of like them being too attached to a system, uh, exposing sensitive information to an
That
assistant.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that already happens, right? Like a lot of users use ChatGPT as therapists, and you're
Yeah.
exposing a lot of your like deep-seated
I know.
problem, life,
I know.
etc. So something to again, like I feel it's a bit weird situation that we are all in. Uh, but yeah, let's
Yeah.
see how the world pans out. But I
We
think
are in the in between of that technological evolution. And yeah,
and I don't think we can stop any of it. Like
of course.
Yeah.
people are still going to ask questions. You're not going to be,
Yeah.
and so also a private moment and like social media where things are
Correct.
outside. So that's going to be an interesting
Yep.
situation.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I think
Good.
it's on us, right? Because as designers, as engineers, it falls under our responsibility also when we design something like this. What you think about this kind of cases, and how do you protect your users? From this. So when you were talking about Cortana, I realized that all the fillers were words we were talking about. I initially, for a long time, I thought it's just to make, like, humanize the AI.
Yeah,
So, and I didn't think about the latency part, but now, like, it makes sense if you think about it. And I think some of the newer companies are doing this very well. Like, on the implementation side, I see Notion is on top of the game now. There's a bunch of other, like, enterprise softwares. Design is big in enterprise, like AI enterprise softwares. Like, I've not seen this level of finesse in other B2B, right? Before this age of AI, I'm sure they were there, but like for this AI era, it's the default. Like, good quality of design, good bar is a default. It's like more and more of that I'm seeing now.
yeah.
Wow.
With AI also, like the average has become good essentially. Like what was good, what
Yeah.
was very good earlier has become average. So how you utilize AI in your workflows, how you utilize these things in your workflows is going to sort of take you a little bit above average. But like it's very easy for anyone to build an average interface
Hmm.
point.
Hmm.
Like you ask a Lovable or a Figma Make or whatever software you use right now, it's going to
Yep.
give you decent software. Like it's usable in most cases.
Yes. Maybe that's what lovable should be called, usable. I don't know. But that's a good. The point you make is a good segue into the next question, right? Like, you designed Cortana in what year was it? It was pre-COVID, right? It was like
Yeah, yeah.
2017, 18, something.
Long back,
Um,
12 years back
right.
now.
Today's AI didn't even exist at that point. So what was the level of AI that was there at that point that you were using and designing for?
Mhm.
And what does that how is that bridged into what we see today? Are there some similarities? Has something come over? Has it completely changed? What does that look like?
Oh, so I think the way to understand all this is also to think about science fiction a little bit.
Okay.
So think about like if you or anyone of the audience is a reader of science fiction, a lot of these ideas have existed in science fiction for a long time.
Yeah.
A lot of people who are building AI are also fans of science fiction in some ways. Like I got you and I or any one of you got into this field because you're interested in technology, you're interested in design, you're interested in like storytelling sometimes, and science fiction is a good culmination of all these things, right? So a lot of these ideas have been in the minds of people 50, 60 years before us. Nothing that we're thinking of is unique in many cases. Like VR has been thought of in Ready Player One, or like even like
Even
earlier,
before,
even
right?
before, right? And Ready Player One is a 30, 40-year old book, essentially.
Oh, right. Yeah, the
Yeah.
movie was newer, but the book I'm sure
Book is
was
very
older.
old. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Makes
So
sense.
a lot of these ideas, a good place to start is also science fiction if you're truly curious about these things. In
Hmm.
terms of where this technology was, there were inklings of this. So basically, like a lot of us who were in this field felt like this is interesting. Like AI was not really going anywhere at that point. Like it was this obscure thing where
Hmm.
yes, sometimes it works. Google search was a good example of AI, pretty good business
Hmm.
around AI. But search essentially is AI in some ways. AI is not just LLMs. It is deep learning is AI, search is AI,
Right.
supervised learning is AI. What is generative mechanisms? GANs are AI. GANs is essentially generative adversarial networks, etc.
Hmm.
Backpropagation. There's lots of techniques. LLM is a type of AI technique that has garnered mainstream attention.
Hmm.
If you think about it, any sort of search systems, Google is a good example, is AI. As soon as it starts working, you don't call it AI anymore. That's the other problem with the industry. Uh,
Yes.
the recommendation system is AI.
Yeah.
When you search things when you're on your YouTube homepage or Netflix homepage, the way it is being recommended is also
Hmm.
an AI technique essentially. Right? When you're looking for a product on Amazon,
Hmm.
recommends other products for you. That is also a type of an algorithm or an AI algorithm
Hmm.
in some ways, which is trained across lots of data that surfaces the right thing for you at the right time. There might be a personalization angle, etc. So a lot of these things were already in the works. So like there was things happening. There were research papers being written. LLMs, in fact, are based on like Google's uh, paper, right? I forgot. Attention is all you need. Is
Yep.
the right?
Yep.
So and basically that paper led to the insight that this is interesting. Let's go deeper into it, and you have ChatGPT and all these things
Hmm.
come out. Similarly, voice interfaces also sort of came out from multiple research labs. One famous paper is Google's BERT paper.
Hmm.
Uh, if you notice, till 2007, voice interfaces were not great, essentially.
That's when, yeah, that's, I think, when the iPhone was
Yeah,
launched, and then
I,
eventually Siri came into the
yeah.
picture.
Right. So
Yeah.
until 2007, like voice interfaces like were really bad, like extremely poor.
Sure.
Like, it was pure keyword recognition. You have to say yes, no to things to for these things to work. Post that,
Hmm.
what happened is there was a seminal paper released by Google actually, which was I think it was called BERT or one of those things,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? That basically changed the way voice recognition is even done, essentially.
Okay.
Provided a new technique of doing voice recognition based on machine learning, etc. And from that point on, you started seeing this emergence of Siri, Google Assistant, Alexa. All those things happened at iPhone because the technology become mature enough to sort of do rudimentary voice
Yeah.
tasks. Like you could set an alarm, you could set reminders, you can send a message. Basic
I,
things
s-
you could do.
I still set
Dictation,
an alarm that way.
yeah.
But yes.
So dictation started working well.
Nice.
A lot of dictation software became much better. So
Hmm.
there are these points in time in the AI when things completely shift. Like LLM is
Hmm.
also at one point of time in AI where things shift, and it has garnered mainstream attention because the interface is so natural for us to use.
It seems magical, right? What is that saying? A technology sufficiently advanced seems like
Right.
magic.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I think you bring up a good point that all of these were sort of stepping stones to where we are today, and they keep building on each other. So at some point in the future, we're going to look back and say, hey, because LLMs happened, we're able to do this,
correct.
right? Which, I don't know, the future might come sooner than it used to be.
Absolutely.
And something interesting I just noticed as you were listing all of these things out, you were mentioning a lot of technical behind the scenes know-how. And I want to call that out a little bit, that as designers, I think there's been this eternal question of, should I know the technology? Should I know coding is typically what we say, but what's happening behind the scenes? In the way I think you've been working, it's been even more relevant to create the experience which feels, truly properly done.
Yeah,
And now more than ever, with the bar being so low, to try and touch some of these things, do a hands-on and get a feel, feels like even it's more important for designers like us to keep doing these things, to know
yep,
the back behind the scenes things, what's happening.
absolutely. So again, this is going to be a little bit of a controversial take. I don't think designers need to learn how to code per se.
Hmm.
There is a place for engineers and good front
Hmm.
end engineers and good designers, etc., to coexist. Uh, However, if you truly care about user experience, you should know how the machine works. Essentially,
Yes.
like if you really care about like building really seamless interfaces, you it is good to know how the thing works. Essentially, like you don't need to know how. Essentially, if you drive cars or if you're interested in cars, right, it is much more enjoyable if you know how a car actually works, how it
Mm.
works, what is a V8, V9, V12 engines, etc. How those things essentially, if you're into electric cars, how
Right.
does the electric motor work, etc. Again, it's not going to be useful for you. Like
Hmm.
you're not really, most of you are not really going to
Hmm.
build cars or anything. But being interested in this stuff, and especially you're going to be building interfaces that humans interact with through a substrate of computing and substrate of uh, microprocessors, etc. Good to know how it works essentially.
Yeah.
Nobody's
I
saying you
mean,
need to like know how to write assembly language, etc.
yeah,
But you
definitely.
know, like if you want to do something crazy,
Yeah.
if you are able to convince your engineers how to build it, and there might be a technique, you could invent
Yeah.
something based on this fundamental knowledge. It's always useful. Again, I'm not a proponent of learning how to code. I know how to code. I can write software, etc. But
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I don't think it's necessary. Like a lot of good designers I've met don't know how to code, but
Correct.
they,
I think that's really more about like
yeah,
what you were saying, right? Know how the system works. That's what you need to know. Because
yeah,
when you have your conversation with the rest of the product team that you're working with, those will be smarter, more intelligent conversations. And you can genuinely design something that's good. Like you said, latency was a matter of physics, right? It wasn't nothing that was happening in the UI, nothing that was happening or being done by the backend engineer. That was a limitation. As a designer, you knew that. You built things into the experience that did not let the end user feel it, and it made the experience more delightful. So that's definitely an important point to take away. Know
yeah,
how the system works. That's nice. Awesome. All right, I'm going to jump chronologically into the next thing I think that happened, and maybe two are very close, but
mhm,
the book that you wrote, Designing Human-Centric AI Experiences, which, as a reminder for people who are online, there is a giveaway. The best question in today's live stream gets a free book from Akshay himself. But tell us about that book. How did it come into being? How long did it take? What was the genesis of it?
mhm.
Um, and are you still referring to that book while you're doing work
Yeah,
today?
yeah, absolutely. So, oh, so it's funny. So actually, I didn't ever intend to write a book. Honestly, I my intent was always that hey, I am super curious about this topic. It
Hmm.
is this obscure thing that nobody is talking about. Let me at least write something around it. So that writing turned into a blog post. Then I started also teaching about this because there was like a small community of people who are like sort of interested in these things, and you'll find these especially in like these tech cities like the Bay Area and Bangalore, etc. You'll find a lot of people who are interested in stuff like this.
Hmm.
So that turned into lots of workshops. I took workshops across lots of schools, lots of forums like this, etc. And as while doing those workshops, like based on the questions that you get, you sort of refine what you are trying to talk about.
Hmm.
That sort of translated into like a structured way of thinking about AI. Generally, I found out like what gaps designers or non-tech folks have when it comes to this technology. What is the gap between an engineer, like an ML person's understanding of AI versus what a lay person or like a designer or like a product manager
Hmm.
thinks about AI. Where are the points of friction essentially? Right, and there are a few things that we found essentially. There are certain things that uh, product and design folks are very good at, which is mainly understanding users, building the right kind of interface, what makes sense. A lot of the logical questions around like the interface themselves or how should humans interact with the technology are good questions for this type of user. How the technology actually works and how to sort of get it to fruition is
Hmm.
another part of the puzzle, which is what the ML folks essentially focus on, like how to
Right.
get it working well essentially, right? It's very hard. It's not none of
How
it
to
is
do the actual core
yeah.
of the thing? Yeah.
Even recognizing like a simple word like hey Alexa is like a lot of work, like
Hmm. Hmm.
because you have to understand real world environments. You have to understand like if somebody has placed the device in in an office versus a
Right.
noisy environment versus a hotel room versus a home where the shower is on and you have kids screaming in the background, etc.
Right.
How should it really work? It's non-trivial really. Like it's easy
Hmm.
for us to imagine like I say the word Alexa and it should recognize it,
Yeah.
but the gap between it should happen and how it is technologically feasible with such a small device with such low compute is like very it's a very hard problem in
It is
general.
potentially rocket science, is
Yeah,
what you're saying.
yeah, close to it, close to it.
Yeah.
Uh, so um, so yeah, that sort of that basically turned into lots of workshops, lots of
Okay.
uh, teaching sessions like this. And I got approached by a publisher on like whether we want to do something around this. Basically, the topic was not in my mind,
Yeah.
but we basically brainstormed on what should the topic be, and basically we came down to the idea that it might be interesting to write something around bridging the gap between design, user experience, product, and technology. This seems like an interesting time. There are lots of interesting things happening, lots of papers being written, etc.
Hmm.
So, yeah, took a long time. Took more than 2 years to write. Uh,
Wow.
Book, lots of hundreds of books,
Wow.
thousands of research papers, lots of podcasts, videos. So
Wow.
fun, but like a lot of it is a lot of work to write a book.
2 years.
Yeah.
That's a really long time to dedicate to something and finally do it.
Yes.
And do it
Uh,
right before ChatGPT launch.
yeah,
That's perfect
just
timing.
ahead of Sam Altman. Just.
That's exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what did that look like? I'm curious. Maybe people would want to know what does it take to write a book. If I just talk about not the topic but the act of doing it.
Got it. So think of writing a book like starting a company, essentially.
Hmm.
So similar to you starting a company and going to VCs and asking for money to build something,
Yeah.
you're asking a publisher to invest in you
Oh,
to write
okay.
on the topic because they're going to invest editors, other kinds of resources, graphic designers, editors, marketing, SEO, ads, etc. to
Hmm.
sort of work on that title essentially. Essentially.
Okay.
So what you start with is a pitch essentially. So you pitch what you are going to talk about. Why is this interesting? Why will people care
Hmm.
about it? Is there competition? If there is competition, what is the gap in the competition? And once you sort of outline all this, and you basically send a draft table of contents essentially. Like
Hmm. Okay.
chapter there would be each chapter have a 1 or 2 line description of what.
Description of what it would be.
Yeah, you
Hmm.
don't need to write the entire book, but at least you need to have an idea of what is going to go.
Wow.
What is the structure of the book look like?
Hmm.
How
Hmm.
many pages it would be, etc. Again, all this changes throughout the course of the book, but having starting with some idea of what you're going to attempt is good. So once you send it to a publisher, they will usually give you feedback on the proposal itself, and it goes through a few feedback cycles. And once that works out, you sort of they send you a contract, you sign it, you ask for changes in the contract, etc. And yeah, usually a good publisher will give you some advance, and then
Hmm.
there's a percentage of. So those are like legalese, but good to know these things before
Yeah.
somebody's writing these things. Good to know. Like, so once that happens, once it gets approved, most good publishers will get lots of proposals.
Hmm.
But making sure your proposal is written really well, and one other uh, one other thing to remember is why are you the right person to write this book?
That's a good one. Okay.
A lot
Okay.
of people want to write books, but it doesn't make sense to write a book if you do not have any background in
Hmm.
specific thing, or you need to sort of show some proof of work essentially.
Hmm.
It also some proof of expertise. It need not be like you need not be super famous
Right. Right.
to write a book, but you need to be somebody who will, for example, like if somebody has managed thousands of people,
Hmm.
uh, it might they are a good authority to write something around management essentially. But I have never managed anyone, and I write a management book around how to people
Right.
management. Nobody's
Right.
gonna
Not make sense.
think
Yeah.
of it from a publisher's perspective also. Like
Hmm.
because eventually they also want to make a return on their investment,
Hmm.
right? So having a little bit of a business sense around these things helps. Like, uh, again, like this is a non-fiction use case. I have not
Right.
in fiction, so I'm sure fiction has a different way of going about it. But
Hmm.
like in general, like for non-fiction, you need to have some expertise or inkling of expertise. You need to know why you are the best person to write something around this topic, and have a good story to tell. That's yeah.
That's
Awesome.
very interesting. Yeah. So we don't get a lot of authors normally. So I have a few more questions. Yeah.
Yes.
Is it generally a very collaborative process? Was it like do you have constraints while you're writing a book? Things you can do, you can't do, like those sort of things.
Uh, I think my publishers were really good. So like I didn't really have too many constraints around. In fact, I changed a lot of chapters as things evolved. So
Mm.
they were pretty good about it. Uh, they also provide you with multiple editors. Basically, every book, whenever you write a chapter, right, it goes through at least 7 draft sessions through
Okay.
different kinds of reviewers. So one will be a technical reviewer, then will be a editorial reviewer, somebody who will just check grammar essentially, how the content flows, etc. Then, depending on the topic you're writing about, you might have a few additional reviewers, etc. So, on an average, 5 to 7 layers of reviews before chapter even comes to like on a page, essentially, like on a published page. Essentially. Uh, so, you would do a review yourself at some point of time because you've written something in the heat of the moment, but once you look at the page after a couple of days, you will realize that
Hmm.
you're off. This is not flowing well. So, you keep changing stuff. So that is the reason it takes a lot of time to write a book. Like especially in a non-fiction setting where you want to make sure your references are correct. You're not obfuscating anything, any information. Things are correct from the right place. Uh, there's a lot of like legal reviews that happen. There's a lot of like want to you don't want to infringe on copyrights, etc.
Oh, right.
So that is a big thing in these situations. In my case, I also asked a few of my friends to review. Essentially,
Hmm. Hmm.
basically, broke. My book has 10 chapters. So every chapter, I asked 2 or 3 friends to sort of review independently and give me just honest feedback on what's working, what's not working. Be as brutal as possible.
Hmm.
These will mostly be people you're close to, who will be okay to like say the things, say what it is like.
Yeah.
Is shit, they'll say it is shit. It's yeah. So that
Nice.
worked. That helped a lot. Being humble helps in these situations. Uh, and yeah, so once you write a chapter, once chapters are written, once the book is compiled, there is one more review essentially you do. It- So my book is 500 pages long, so it took a long time to sort of uh,
Wow.
figure out, like do the whole review of the entire book towards the end. But like the my editor and my publisher, like the project manager, etc., they were really good about this. So also they you have deadlines essentially. So I
Nice.
2 years. I had initially committed 1 year, but it took me 2 years to write the book end to end because of like life.
All okay because of life.
Because I was also working and
Right.
pressure,
Mm.
etc. So things take time, but as long as you're honest about it and you're good about like most deadlines, I think in general it's okay. Because at the end, the outcome of the book matters a lot more. If I write something in a hurry but it's not good, it's not going to be useful for anyone.
Right.
Uh,
So
so
the takeaway for me is one, I think it's always a good idea to start with blogs. I think if anyone is interested, they start by writing blogs, you know, and then have a good publisher. You emphasize this on this quite enough. So I think having a good publisher really helps.
yeah,
And like all projects, there is a timeline, there is a deadline. So you need to work within that. Uh,
yeah, it is also a lot of discipline essentially.
yeah.
You need to
Must
write
be
something every day. Essentially, that was the goal that I had set for myself. Like
nice.
even if I'm tired, even if I have had a very bad work day, I need to write 1 page anyhow. Essentially,
Hmm.
the only way to write a, like a book that as long as uh, I had to write, uh, the only way to do it was to have been
Be
disciplined.
consistent. Yeah.
Be-
That's why I said doing it for 2 years and successfully releasing it. It's a big feat.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So the book giveaway is working because we're getting some good questions.
Oh, nice.
Uh, Do you want to ask them, Pooja? I also have them in
There's,
the shared Notion, so you can
yeah,
pick up.
so there's one interesting one. I'll start with that. How easy it is, like this is from Datta, but he's asking how easy it is to comprehend the book that you have written.
Oh,
What is?
it's super easy. Like it's meant for non-technical folks.
Hmm.
It goes from like what is AI to how to think about building AI experiences. And towards the end of the book, it I spent 25% of the book on figuring out how to work with your tech teams essentially, because that is the only way you're actually going to build anything,
Yeah.
right? So understanding technical nuances of how these things work, what is simple things like what is precision, recall, accuracy. Like your ML team will probably talk about these names, but I've tried to explain this in very simple terms and why it is important in different contexts. In certain cases, for example, if you're building a medical, if you're building in healthcare, you want to be as precise as possible. So you want to be right almost all the time, right? But if you are building a video generation service or like something that recommends videos or music, being wrong sometimes is okay as long as you cover everything as much as possible. So precision matters less, accuracy matters more, essentially. So depending on the context, different things will make sense. And again, like you don't have to build ML models to do this. Like even if you understand how these things work, fundamentally most AI is there is some input, there is some model that takes in some that input and generates an output. So if the input could be a text, the output is some more text, or
Hmm.
which is GPT. So an image, which is your DALI, a video, which is your Sora. So if you take any input and generate an output, essentially that's almost 99% of AI. Essentially, there will be some obscure cases where this does not work, but in most cases there is an input-output mapping. You need to know what the input is. Your input could be text, it could be somebody's interaction, it could be music, it could be somebody taking a picture of something, and the output could be whatever. Like, so I could take a picture of something and generate a 3D model out of it. Is also a model that you built essentially. Right. So most AI is this, and uh, this is a very simplified definition, but like in most cases this will work. Like if you think of anything that uh, around you that you think is AI, is probably some sort of an input-output mechanism.
Cool.
Uh, Speaking of which, like when you were writing this book, right? Did you ever think that chat will become the sort of default for AI? Because now it's everywhere, right? Every interface is a chat interface, all AI interface. Uh,
That's one of the things that I don't think chat is the best interface anyway for a lot of these workflows. Again, I understand why chat works essentially. It's very familiar. It is how you interact with most other humans through technology when you're not in front of them, essentially.
Hmm.
Right. So if I'm trying to talk to you, I would probably message you on WhatsApp, which is a chat based interface. So from that lens, when I'm talking to an alien intelligence, talking through a chat bot feels very intuitive to do. So I think chat has its place and it works great when most of your workflows are around like text based
Hmm.
interactions. Like if you're writing code, chat makes a lot of sense. Writing a document, chat makes a lot of sense. Most of human knowledge work is writing some sort of document or code or something like that. But I don't
Right.
think chat is the best way to do everything, essentially.
so do
Right.
you think this will change in like sorry to cut you. Do you think this will change in like the next 5 years? We will have a completely different medium on how we interact with like AI.
Yeah, I think chat will continue to exist. But I think a lot of other kinds of modalities will start coming back into the foray because like chat is now sort of saturated, right? Like essentially, if I ask any one of you to sort of build an AI interface, you're probably going to start with a chatbot and you're going to build some sort of a LLM based system.
Yeah.
But again, always helps to go back to first principles. Science fiction is a good place to go back to. Uh, think of what a real world environment where AI might be used feels like, essentially. It's not always me in front of a computer. In fact, I don't really want anything in front of me at all. Right? In my room right now, if I want to switch off that light, I could probably describe where the light switch is, or I could just say switch off that light. Saying switch off that light is much easier than me describing to a chatbot how to do it. Right?
Yeah.
Even typing switch off that light is harder
Hmm.
than me actually going to it and switching it off myself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Easiest mechanism is for me to just point to it and say switch that off, and that
Makes sense.
essentially. So I think we'll see a lot more like multimodal interfaces, but like, again, like it is a non-trivial problem. It's just very hard. Whenever you start getting into real world, which is not in front of a bounded environment of a computer,
Hmm.
things start becoming very hard. So in AI, it's called. There are two kinds of environments in AI in general. Uh, there are simple and there are different words for this, but I'll just simplify it for us. Simple environment and a complex environment. Right? Simple environment. Think of chess as a game. Right?
Hmm.
This is a simple environment. There's a defined board. There are defined rules, and everything happens within the
The boundaries of that. Yeah.
boundaries of that
Hmm.
game. Like there's nothing else apart from like those pieces, 64 squares, uh, etc. Right?
Right.
And the combinations, while they are a lot for a human to compute, for a machine it is very easy. So if you think
Yeah.
about it, most grandmasters don't really compete with machines unless they want to practice. Essentially, it's not interesting enough because we know computers have surpassed humans in chess in most cases. Right? A complex environment is something like poker. Right? If you anyone
Hmm.
play poker, right, it has a lot more complexity and nuance to how you win in
Right.
poker. There's an element of luck, what cards you get, what cards are there in your like uh, play the other with other players.
Yeah.
Are they bluffing or not? Are they saying the right thing? And if you think about it, most real world environments are like poker. They're not like chess. Right? You're in your job. You're fighting for a promotion across lots of other people. You don't know. Like there's a lot of opacity in how people think, people's
Right.
relationships with each other. Most real world environments are poker like in some ways. Driving a car is poker like. It's not chess like. Right? So as soon as you get into real world environments, things get a lot more complex, and I think we'll soon realize the limits of this. Like chat works because it is a bounded environment
Hmm.
of the internet. Again, it's a very large bounded environment. Not saying it is trivial, but still bounded in some ways.
Right.
And as you start building robots in the real world, there are infinite ways in which the real world.
Correct. I mean, we keep talking about AGI and all of that
Yeah.
eventually happening, and that's. But I love the analogy of using poker to explain how complicated things can get.
Yeah.
Awesome. We have more questions, Pooja. Do you want to get into those right now or later?
I'll take one
And
final question, which is related to book. So, as you reflect on writing this book after its launch, are there any beliefs about AI design that you would now change or unlearn?
Mm. So one thing is I did not predict that LLMs would become this big. LLM was always a
hmm,
technology. It was very obscure when I was writing this book. Like GANs, etc. GANs is generative adversarial networks. Essentially, things that like change. You remember, like a lot of tech companies before LLMs sort of had these video-based AI where it could change the filter of a video. You can transform a
hmm,
video from like a Van Gogh painting to something else. For example, Van Gogh painting to a Monet
hmm,
painting,
hmm.
of real world to a 3D game like environment. That is essentially GANs is a technique that sort of helps in that sort of a creating those sort of experiences. So it captured a lot of imagination. Lots of companies also built around this. In fact, like my hypothesis was that this would become like the entryway into VR and mixed reality, etc., because it enables you to create environments on the fly. So yeah, so my prediction was, in fact, in my book, I LLM is a very small part of my book essentially. Like it's
Hmm.
almost a footnote in some ways. Uh, so that prediction was incorrect. And like if I ever update it, like I'll probably include a larger section on LLMs.
Of course, yeah.
But I think first principles still apply essentially. Right? When you're building AI products, there are only two things that matter essentially: trust and feedback. Right?
Hmm.
You want to build trust with your users, and your because AI systems are probabilistic, they will sometimes be wrong. How do you get feedback from your users is a second component essentially. So if I'm driving a car and that is self-driving, uh, I want to trust it enough for me to sort of safely be in that car essentially, right? So trust becomes a very big component. How you build trust is also different things. So in a car self-driving car type situation, the way to build trust is not show pop-ups or not show things. There's a lot more nuance that goes into trust building. You would trust a car by a famous car brand a lot more than somebody who has just started a startup and they're saying they have self-driving cars, right?
Hmm.
Example, like
Correct.
just a Tesla robo taxi, a little bit more than if one of my batchmates started a car company tomorrow and like asked me to sit in it, I would be a little bit wary of uh,
Hmm.
going into it. So there's a lot more like non-design nuance into building trust, right? When non-UX design nuance, when I
Hmm.
say non-design. So trust is also about how well your system works uh, in different contexts, right? And how well your system works and how you explain how well it works to your users, essentially.
Hmm.
So let me break it down. So if I'm building an app that recognizes plants in India and it has been trained on data from India, essentially, I would if I tell the user upfront that this is going to work best on plants from that are native to India, I have already set the expectation that hey, this is going to work well in India. If I go to the US and I try on plants there, it's not going to work. But if I
Hmm.
make a bold claim that says universal plant recognizer or something like that, but it
Yeah.
has only been trained on data from India,
Yeah.
it fails in another country, you are going to slowly lose trust. So that's why you see a lot of people trying out lots of AI apps, but very few stick
Yeah.
because the trust is not built, and trust building is not being always right. It is also about setting
Hmm.
expectations. If I set the expectation that this is going to work well, for example, like if I build a system that uh, let me think. Uh, let me say I build a system for diabetes patients. Essentially, I
Sure.
say yeah, I recommend foods based on your like
Needs.
diabetes.
Yeah.
And my bounded environment is it is for diabetes patients. It is only I'm going to talk about these things.
Yeah.
Right? Certainly, expose that entire model for a general audience, it is going to cause havoc and it's going to
Hmm.
cause a lot of harm to humans in general. So, and as soon
Understood.
as like these things start happening, you start losing trust in these systems. Even like large companies, you will see as soon as they start breaking trust of their users, like there are so many models, right? Only few have been able to sort of
Yeah.
maintain retain trust. So
Yeah.
trust is a very big component of how to build AI. In fact, like 50% of more than 50% of the book is just around trust and feedback.
Nice.
Right? There are different ways of getting feedback. Feedback is not always thumbs up, thumbs down. It is also implicit sometimes. How I behave with my AI is also feedback. It's also dual. For example, if I'm listening to a song on Spotify, I could either heart the song that is
Yeah.
Spotify's model, right? But I could also play the song till a certain point of time and
Yeah.
skip. So the point of time till I played the song, and when I skip it is also signal.
Yeah.
It could basically look at the sound signature of just that much and recommend more songs to you. And the
Right.
job done for Spotify playlist is recommend the next best song for this user. So I use as much context, as much feedback. Sometimes users will play a song on repeat but never like it. Is also feedback. Right?
Hmm.
I like songs from a specific artist is also feedback. When
Hmm.
these two artists are creating something together, I I listen to that song a lot more than
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
not individually. So there are lots of ways in which like these things can be sliced and diced. But like when you think of AI from a user experience perspective, don't just think of thumbs up, thumbs down, star ratings. This is very
Interesting.
rudimentary. Like
Hmm.
or everyone is going to do it.
And it
The
doesn't always work. I
Yeah,
mean, people do it sometimes and then just, ignore it completely.
especially like 5-star ratings, right? Like it's also very contextual.
Yeah.
If I'm a generous person, I always give 5 stars.
Yeah.
If I'm not as generous, I will. Three is my 5 star essentially.
Correct.
And
Makes
and you'll
sense.
definitely give this like 1 star when something does not work for you. So
Yeah,
there is this but that bias also, right? So
Yeah.
if something works for you, you might forget to give it a like a proper rating. But if it's not working, you'll
True.
go to the
yeah,
platform and be like,
absolutely.
this does not work.
Yeah, you only give feedback when something is wrong.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there are the signals that you can, just take for your product. That's very well put. As we are talking about trust, right? In the sectors like healthcare, because you've worked in healthcare, right? The trust becomes like there are like real consequences if something fails, right? So how do you balance like speed with accuracy and trust around these things? Like in your real experience, has there been like cases like this? How have you managed those?
Hmm. So healthcare is especially a very sensitive environment, and like trust is number one in healthcare essentially. If you don't trust your doctor, you're not going to go to them. Like, even if others say that he's a very good doctor,
Yeah.
uh, you are never going to go. Like it is very human. It is very uh, personal for a lot of people. Right? It could be simple things like how their office looks, could be how they behave with you when they talk to you, what they say, what are the words
Yeah.
they use, etc. So trust is especially critical in healthcare situations because it is often life and death, or like it is going to harm you if something goes wrong, right? So the way to generally balance it is always to err on the side of safety in healthcare, which means that you might be slow, but it's
Hmm.
always a long game. It is
Hmm.
most healthcare is a 10-year game. It is never a 1-year game.
Okay.
Right? Getting a new technology into a hospital,
Mm-hmm.
while on the surface feels very uh,
Helpful.
helpful and like they're helpful and also like should feel obvious sometimes to us.
Yeah.
But
That'll definitely, yeah, work
yeah,
out and all that. Yeah.
but once you enter the system and you sort of observe the nuances, there are so many
Yeah.
players, so many incentives, so many different kinds of uh, layers of scrutiny. It like usually like it is always a long game, and I think it is a long game for the right reasons also.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
could deploy something quickly, but if it leads to a few people dying, it's not ever
It's,
worth it.
yeah, it's
So
literally life or death in
yeah,
this case. Yeah.
so you want to err on the side of caution, safety as much as possible. Provide enough guards and checks. For example, even at Suki, when we're building like uh, healthcare systems, right? The doctor is still in control always.
Right.
It's never the AI making a decision.
Yeah. So
Right?
AI cannot take the final call. It cannot sign the report for you. A doctor
No,
needs to like assess it and approve that thing, right? As a last step.
correct. So the signatory, like any approvals
Yeah.
for medication or anything else, still need to go through a human eye. Like
Right.
even though we might get to a situation where like AI becomes much better at all of these things and much faster than doctors, if you're taking your child to the hospital, you would rather have a human doctor diagnose them and prescribe medication than just an AI machine that says, I put in these systems and symptoms and this is the medication that I got.
Got it. So speaking of doctors, right? In my experience, because I worked in healthcare, when we would go on field trips in India, doctors were a bit hesitant to adapt to new technologies. How has your experience been on that front?
Uh, it's I think doctors are hesitant for the right reasons. And
Yes.
like, so again, like it is a very hard profession, right? Doctors work 24/7 in most cases. Most of them are burnt out. We do not have enough doctors. It is a very important profession. So I think, like, imagine somebody having 15-minute meetings for 8 hours straight, right?
Right. Oh my God.
Anything that interrupts your workflow is not worth it for you,
Yeah.
right? So it's that is the life of a typical doctor essentially, unless you are doing surgery, etc. And surgeries are like long. It
Hmm.
is
Couple of
4
hours,
hours
if not
of
more.
concentrated effort, concentrated work. Like, I think a lot of us will not be able to do it,
Yeah.
right? So uh, anything that interrupts their workflow, any cool technology, they will not care about unless it really
Hmm.
helps them, right? And for in any cases, it will always have an adoption curve. And adoption curve
Hmm.
in this case will be slower because these people are busy. They're most of them are not as tech savvy,
Yep.
and they do not have honestly they do not have time for this. So any company coming in and saying, "Hey, we have this thing that will help you," you need to really prove it,
Yeah.
Right.
like slow, methodical, hard work.
So if the TG is doctors, right? Like if you're building a product that is going to be used by doctors, you need to build it in a way where it does not interfere their actual work, right? Especially with AI, you cannot slap a chat interface on their faces because it's never going to work for them, right? Then what were the decisions as you were building this product, right? What were the decisions you folks had to take, to make it like more seamless and more in the background? I'm assuming,
Mhm.
right? Where it works for you, but it's like in the background, it's not really interfering with your active work. Uh, yeah, so can you talk more about that?
Um, so in our cases, a lot of the interface is invisible. Essentially, we like to call it invisible. Essentially, it exists for the doctor when they need the interface. It goes into the background when you don't need it. Essentially,
Hmm.
so a core workflow is to sort of when a doctor and a patient are talking to each other, the AI essentially listens to the interaction and basically generates a bunch of artifacts.
Hmm.
When it's listening, the doctor need not really interact with the interface at all. In fact, they can leave the phone somewhere in the room and go on about what they're trying to do. And the think of it like a human note taker on the side. They are taking down all your notes, all your prescriptions, etc., and sort of helping the doctor in sort of generating a draft of whatever they want to create. So a lot of our focus has been on like non-intrusive background type interfaces.
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, it's not necessary that your interface need to always be visible in many cases. Right? It being available when you need it and it disappearing into the background when you don't is a perfectly good interface. And in fact, like a lot of uh, like somebody who's like really interested in technology and like has and if you're like if you read a lot of science, I keep coming back to science fiction because that's interesting. Uh, you will always see that uh, in any of your science fiction fantasy books, you don't ever see a device like a phone, right? Like if you read a Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, uh, like what is a good science fiction book, your Cryptonomicon or Ready Player One, etc.
Yeah.
It never talks about like phone-like devices anymore. It's almost phone is almost unnatural. Like things behind a glass box is glass surface is almost unnatural for humans to imagine. You don't dream about phones in your dreams.
Hmm.
So it's from that lens, like it almost makes sense for a lot of this technology to be invisible, right? So it only appearing when it makes sense and disappearing when you don't need it. So which is why like even the Meta's new glasses are
Yeah.
interesting as this because it appears when you need it, it disappears when you don't need it. uh, Pencil is an interesting interface. Like uh, writing is more interesting than typing, but I think typing has become we've sort of evolved to type. I feel at this point. So
Mm-hmm. I
that
can't look at my handwriting anymore.
yeah,
Yes.
I yeah. So So there are cases like that, and like of course like technology also brings in evolution with it. Uh, but when it comes to a lot of these, like especially like interfaces, like the way the world seems to be heading in, again I might be wrong in my prediction, it might take
Hmm.
lots of years, is that we're moving away from like chatbot type things to more multimodal interfaces.
Hmm.
You're seeing things like I think there is a company called Whisper Flow, they have
Yes.
dedication software which is also pretty good. So lots
Hmm.
of you're seeing this like slow transition to that. And if dictation is very good, I will probably prefer to do dictation in most cases. Uh, but if it is, but in so far it has not been as good for me. Right. So best way to think about this is think about a job to be done for your user. So what does a user want to do,
Hmm.
or what does a person want to do, and build the interface around it instead of saying I want to build a chatbot, I want to build a chat-based interface.
Makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of chatbot fatigue, so to say,
Yep.
anyway happening, and I mean, this is probably a subtopic we can dive deep into and try to understand where we are heading. But it's probably a good indicator for people to, for us as designers, to think about that. Okay, I mean, there's enough AI chatbots out there. Think about other ways to bring the power of what these systems can do and improve the experiences you have. That's where you will truly shine as designers.
Yeah, I think it's
So
also a really interesting time to step back from Figma a bit, because as we're talking about invisible interface, are you going to design it on Figma?
yeah,
There's a whole lot of experience you need to be designing this around, and you need like to be there. I don't think you can do this sitting in your office in the cabin. You need to understand what that environment looks like, and maybe then design for that, right? So is this also like going to be the future as like of a product designer as the job role also involves?
that's a good question.
Yeah, I think fundamentals of this role don't change too much. I think there's a transition towards like a builder type role where uh, often designers can write, create software or create technology themselves, and vice versa. A lot of like new folks from colleges that I speak to do interact with hardware, do interact with like non-traditional, what you would call like UX design methodologies. So I would say like the if you think about it like little bit, take a step back and think about it. What is the role of a designer? Is
Hmm.
to designer or any product person or a builder essentially is to sort of understand your users and build something that find problems and build something that solves that problem
Yeah.
essentially. Now that can happen through a phone app. It can happen through a chatbot. It can happen through a device that you build. Sometimes
Yeah.
it can happen through no technology at all. Doesn't matter. As long as you're able to think about users, go out into the real world, talk to your users, talk to uh, people, uh, and understand their pain points, and sort of understand, empathize, and also sort of figure out solutions around this, right? That's
Hmm.
essentially the job. Even a product manager is doing the same thing. A designer is also doing the same thing. The
Hmm.
material is different. A material is you use Figma or you might use sketching or you might use other kinds of mediums to sort of communicate that thought.
Correct.
A product manager uses a PRD or like a text-based communication to communicate the same thought. But if you think about it, we're all essentially doing the same thing. We're talking to users, you're trying to understand it. And again, when I say talk to users, it could also be metrics, right? Metrics is nothing but aggregation of
Yeah.
lots of users.
Qualitative information about what your users are saying,
Yeah,
essentially.
it's just like looking at user behavior and figuring out what to do about it.
Quantitative. Yes. Sorry.
Qualitative. Yes. So
Makes sense.
those don't change. I don't think that has changed even with AI. Maybe like it becomes faster. Essentially, your speed of
Hmm.
iteration can be a lot. if we can be exponentially quicker,
Yeah.
try out a lot more things, but figuring out what should be the thing that you build is still a human judgment call.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Building your taste, building your uh, basically judgment will be a lot more valuable. And that
Hmm.
judgment usually is built through repetition in some ways. So people with lots of years of experience, they are good not because they have better skills. In fact, I'm sure my skills are not as good as a lot of my reportees
Hmm.
skills, right? But what I bring in is a lot of taste and judgment. I know what good looks like, and that has often happened through repetition, essentially. Right?
Right.
And when increase the speed of repetition and iteration in this AI world, and like maybe the job fully transitions to something else. UX design, if you think about it, is a fairly recent job. It's not too old.
It's not as old as a lot of careers. Yes.
It's,
Yeah.
it's, it's not as old as a finance,
Yeah. Or a
on
doctor. Or
doctor,
yeah.
right?
Yes.
Fairly recent job. We should be okay with it
Yeah.
evolving and
Yeah.
transforming.
As it
And
is evolving, sorry, everyone,
go on. Go
but
on.
as it is evolving, like what parts of this job you think will disappear in the next few years as it evolves?
I would say like uh, disappears. I don't think anything disappears. It always like there's always some people who will always,
Form or some version. Yeah. It's like energy that cannot be,
yeah.
created or destroyed. It just takes another form.
Yep, yep. I don't think anything like any parts of the job disappear. They just become
Hmm.
more valuable or less valuable,
Hmm.
essentially. So your judgment skills around talking to people, user interaction, like understanding users, user
Hmm.
research skills will continue to be important, right? But being able to synthesize that research is probably not is probably easier to do it through an AI mechanism. I can just give lots of videos and lots of uh, research notes, etc., to some sort of an AI. It will
Hmm.
generate decent enough insights for me to work with. In
Hmm.
most real world settings, that is what you need, right? Unless you're doing very cutting edge deep research where you need to like go through every user statement, I don't think any researcher right now is doing all that. They're probably feeding
Yeah.
a lot of this to an LLM and then they're generating. So being able to talk to users is going to be a valuable skill. Being able to churn through that data is not a valuable skill,
Hmm.
but figuring out what insight is relevant for my business is a valuable
Is
skill.
again what is relevant.
Right? So
Precisely.
that becomes more important.
That
When
that's
yeah,
sorry, that was kind of the thought that was coming to my mind previously when Pooja, you were speaking. The change from what was there before to what is now, us like in this design profession where we are working on digital experiences, it's very closely tied to how the technology is evolving. And as of today, technology is evolving really fast. So we were at a point where there was some saturation. So whatever research, whatever speaking to users you had done wasn't very far from where the technology was. And now there's a much larger gap there. And there are opportunities in both sides, right? Figuring out where the technology has reached and then figuring out how to get the users there. That's sort of where I think I understand what Akshay you're saying is
yeah.
where we are heading towards and what's becoming more relevant for us.
So even when you think about like uh, user interface design, right? And I'll
Yeah.
come about like the future of technology in a bit, but
Mm.
pure like most of us, what we are doing is building rectangles on screens essentially.
Yeah.
Right? So building the creating the user interface is going to become less valuable essentially.
Yeah.
Creating Figma mockups is going to be less valuable, right? However, knowing what the user journey should be, how to reduce the number of steps for a user, if an AI generates 100 options, which is the option I should go with?
Yeah.
How do I decide? Decision making around these things is going to become a lot more valuable and important because, as we have seen, like everyone can build a perfectly decent interface now.
Hmm.
Like there is no crappy interface anymore. Right? Most AI software will give you decent interface. It's going to be boring, but it is going to still be usable. If you talk to non-designers, that's what most people care about. Like if you operate in this
Yeah.
capitalistic environment, like your like doctor is not really caring about how beautiful this system looks like if it is doing its job well, predictably, reliably, I am perfectly happy with it. If it reduces the number of steps for me, I am much more happy with it. Right. So I think a lot of your judgment skills are going to be important.
Yeah.
So trying to hone that, what knowing what good looks like, and knowing what good looks like can happen through a few ways. One is you try out more things, just you increase your speed of iteration. You get exposed to what good looks like, right?
Hmm.
Museums, go to watch documentaries, do other things that are human examples of what is great, essentially,
Hmm.
and that will like sort of sometimes give you inspiration on what great looks like, and that's what you want to sort of develop, right? Focusing too much on like just building UI is not a very useful skill at this point. Again, you will still need to do it, and there'll be an interim
Correct.
point uh, in the world where all this will still be relevant. But I think at some point, like similarly, you don't use calculators anymore,
Hmm.
physical calculator anymore, but you
Yeah.
still need the concept of calculation.
Yeah.
Uh,
Makes sense.
you will not use a Figma probably, but you still need the concept of a good user interface.
Hmm.
So those things start becoming important. So I think value will shift. Things become less. For example, like a lot of graphic design is like has reduced in value. Like a lot of
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
marketing assets. I'm sure a lot of companies already are like just build using AI to build a lot of it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now the job of a graphic designer has now shifted from being a creator of these graphics to a curator of
That
what
makes sense.
good graphic looks like. Right. So the value has shifted to somebody who's more intelligent versus somebody who was able to produce lots of graphic. And sometimes they're the same thing, but in many cases, like you are seeing a shift of value across the chain.
Makes sense. All right. In the interest of time, Pooja, do you want to just jump over to questions?
I think I have one final question.
Yes.
Because in this era where design is changing, how your design is changing, a lot of new tech and tools are coming up, and you are a new designer. It's hard to not get overwhelmed, you know, by it. So, what advice would you give to freshers entering this design industry at this time?
I would say, like, if you're a fresher, don't be afraid of all these tools at all. Like, I think trying more is always good. It is, in fact, your job to try a lot more tools. What else are you doing? So, you're not making decisions at this point. You are probably building your taste and building your skill when you enter the industry, essentially, right? Being adaptable is super important now, right? Because like I said, like building UI might not be valuable, but being able to talk to users becomes valuable. Maybe in the future, something else becomes a lot more valuable. So, how you move towards the source of value is something you should continuously think about. Like, and it's not like a fresher thing only. Everyone should be thinking about how to adapt to this environment all the time because things are changing. My job might not exist tomorrow, and I should be able to sort of adapt
Yeah.
continuously. So I would say, like, don't be afraid of these tools. Try out things. Some things will stick. I don't have a good answer because I am myself overwhelmed with lots of tools. There's like hundreds of tools in my backlog that I want to try, which
Mhm. Yeah.
not gotten to yet. So hundreds of tools, hundreds of books. So it's fine. All of us are in the same boat.
Yes, we are all figuring it out together. So let's say if you're hiring, a designer at this time today, what would signal that someone is truly like AI ready for you?
Someone is too. It's not a relevant question actually. Uh, it's like saying what would signal somebody who is database ready.
Yeah.
It's like think of AI as a technology primitive essentially. You're not like for example like if you go back 20 years, uh, databases were cloud and database was something. We had these cloud
Yeah.
designers temporarily, right? It doesn't mean anything. It's just a thing that exists. and it is a continuum of technology where you are like you at this point, it'll be very weird for somebody to say I am a cloud designer. Like,
Yeah.
Hmm.
everything works on the cloud or some sort of a database. Like somebody at
Hmm.
he is not going to say I am a database first designer, because Swiggy is a database of all food and restaurants, and it matches things to people uh, at the back end. So it's an irrelevant question to ask what is an AI ready designer.
Hmm.
A
Yeah.
more useful question to ask is what skills do I have? Am I adaptable? Right? If a new technology comes in, will I be able to? Do I have the capability and courage to sort of adapt to those skills? So, generally, when I'm hiring, what I am really looking at is, uh, I would say, like what I call as raw intelligence, essentially. Right? Nobody is an expert at anything.
Yeah.
uh, it's most of these things are going to be irrelevant. Like even if you are an expert at Figma today, it is probably not going to be a useful skill in the next 3 years, because there will be an AI system. A lot of people are starting to like just build things on Cursor directly. I don't know if it's stays, but I think like tools keep changing. So focusing on specific technologies for a designer is not something I would basically hire around. Like it will be a good to have, good to know that okay, this person is interested in AI and has worked in AI companies or has done some AI stuff before. But more interesting questions are: have they spoken to their users? How well do they understand the business in which they
Hmm.
are in? How well do they understand the stakeholders that they work with? Right? How good are they at collaborating across different disciplines? uh, what are the core skills like? Right? Different people come with different kinds of core skills. So somebody might be really good at graphic design, still a relevant skill, but it signals you have good taste in visuals. Somebody might be good at research, right? Still a relevant core skill to have. Somebody might be good at motion, a very important skill to have, right? Somebody might come from a filmmaking background. Like backgrounds don't matter too much, right? As long as you are smart, you are adaptable, you have a core skill that you are
Good
interested
at.
in, you can
Yeah.
always like transition or evolve yourself over time. Your people are not fixed, people change. So
Yes.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Absolutely. So adaptability, your core strengths. I think these things become really helpful as you are navigating this uh, job search. In this
yeah.
time.
Also like very difficult to show adaptability in your portfolio. So I would say if you're asking purely from a tactical standpoint, having decent documentation of how you arrived at a solution, I think all those things still uh, are relevant. But
Yeah.
honestly, like whenever we put a job post, we get like hundreds of applications quickly, like within the first 30 minutes or something. So hard to sort of parse through. So as long as you're able to tell your story well, that helps. And rest is like largely adaptability can usually be gauged in a one-on-one conversation. It's hard to gauge just through your social media or just through your portfolio. So when you're talking to your interviewer, I think showcasing that will be useful. Like how you went from this transition, what happened, tell me
Right.
Hmm.
how you collaborate with your team is more useful.
Hmm. That's
Awesome.
great. I think in the interest of time, I'm sure like there can be an endless conversation. We can stay on
Yeah,
this
I
call
am just
forever.
holding back questions. I'm like, I can ask this and this and this and this. Okay.
But we'll just take like a couple of questions from the audience before we wrap it up, right? Abhimanyu, do you want to start with your favorite, maybe?
I don't know. I think the favorite has to be chosen by Akshay from all the questions.
Oh, that.
Okay,
Hmm.
so let me ask this question. Like, let me go to through the list. I'll just ask a couple of questions. Pick a couple of questions from the chat. Um, okay, there's one very specific question. I'm not sure if we can. Okay, there is this question by Datta. What principles, controls, and architecture do we need to design AI that protects data, especially in enterprise software in Europe?
Oh, like you're asking GDPR questions.
Hmm.
Uh, I think like uh, general principle. I would say like I'm going to give a very broad principle, but I can always like I've written a few blog posts on this topic, so you can always check them out. Is like uh, think of how your core problem is you're trying to build trust with your users. They happen to be in this geographic region called Europe, which has its own rules and regulations that stipulates that you need to be transparent about data. You need to, depending on the industry you're in, it will also change how you expose information, what level of information you expose. How do you make it understandable for users? Like, I could always expose information to you, but if expose binary to you, you're like not going to understand. I've still exposed information, but it's not understandable to you.
Hmm.
There's a thin line between terms and condition and explainability, essentially.
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
So I can always add a big terms and condition with 300 pages, etc. Nobody reads it. We all know.
Yeah.
But if I'm able to explain to you in simple manner how this system works, how it uses your data, this is where UX designers can play a very strong role, essentially. How to make things explainable uh, in these settings. How do you provide controls to your users when they are not fine with some setting? For example, like uh, there is a system that uses my health records for some reason, right, to generate predictions, but it need not use it. And you'll see a lot of these finance apps using your phone gallery, etc.
Hmm.
They have no business using my phone gallery.
Hmm.
So how do I expose this information? Again, it's not just a design question anymore, right? It's more of a moral, ethical question
Yeah.
for the entire company and the business.
Hmm.
Like, why do you as a business need my phone contacts, and why do you as a business need my photographs in my phone that may be personal to me,
Yeah.
or an application that has no, in my mental model, it has no use of this information. Like, either you explain it to me, or you don't ask for it, or you provide me controls quickly to sort of not expose the information, and that is going to build trust. Like, and a lot of European countries will sort of reinforce this a lot more. India is a little bit more lax with a lot of these things.
Got it. There is another question. Can we do ethical strategies to ensure voice interfaces minimize and responsibly delete sensitive audio data? Very good
Yep.
question.
In fact, like that is general recommendation in most cases. Uh, Even at Suki, when we delete data regularly. No data is
Hmm.
trained. We do not save any data on our servers, etc., because it is sensitive information. So general recommendation is if you don't need it, don't keep it. Essentially, right? And that again, it's a very nuanced question to ask your CEO, ask your team members on how what data is relevant for me. Is it really useful? Can I sometimes like this information you need to train the model,
Yeah.
but after it has been trained, you can discard it essentially.
Hmm.
Right? So, do I need to really store it? Are questions to ask. Uh, Again, it is a bit contextual. It will depend on the industry you're in, what you're trying to do, uh, and like the region you're in, etc. So there's a lot of context around just answering with a yes or no here. But yeah, I would say be nuanced. Think about why.
Yeah,
Think about your users. At the same time, you operate on behalf of your company in many cases. So
Hmm.
understand the business also. Understand why we need these things.
there are a few more good, like really good questions, but I'll take a final one
Mhm.
before we wrap up. So this may sound like an unusual request, but how can UX design reduce the environmental impact of data centers by changing the way humans interact with computers?
Mm, I don't think this is purely a UX design thing.
Yeah,
There's lots of industries, lots of. Okay, I'm gonna give a controversial take here.
Hmm.
UX design is not the most important profession, honestly. Like, there are a lot more important professions. We are only largely an enabler of things for humans to interact with technology and interfaces. Think of yourself largely as a medium of things.
Hmm.
Don't have high ego, large egos around that I am the best or like I know everything. Right? There are lots of experts, lots of people who understand a lot of things a lot more better. We might understand design of interfaces a little bit better. The world is much beyond designing interfaces also. So I would say like being humble helps. Again, I did not answer your question. Uh, how can UX design reduce environmental impact? It can be done context specific. Uh, like if I have to give you tactical situations, how much reducing screen time of people is going to improve environmental impact,
Sure.
right? Like don't use your phone, you don't charge it that long,
Hmm.
right? Encourage people to go out more. It's going to reduce.
We
Touch
just
grass.
lock everyone's phone after 9 p.m. and
But I
unlock
want to do
it.
it like it's like it's so I know I didn't answer your question, but I honestly like I'm not the expert to really answer this.
I think there's a lot more work generally that needs to be done in this space. We are again very early to this whole ecosystem,
Hmm.
right? And I'm sure we will like everyone is trying to figure this out as we move along. Uh, well, this was a very insightful session. I really love. Like, thank you for taking out your time, both of you, Akshay and Abhimanyu, on a Sunday. Uh, thank the audience for taking out their time, asking really good questions. Uh, and I think we should continue this conversation, not in this forum exactly, but I think we should like generally continue this conversation around different, medias. But again, once again, thank you, Akshay, for taking out your time. We would like, I'm sure, like in future, we'll do like a follow up session to this someday, and
Yes.
maybe when you're writing your second book, we don't know, anything can happen.
Not anytime soon.
All right, that's the end of this